There has become a thing that's gone on, it seems like in this, especially this last year, where, what's the word I'm looking at? Ideology is more important than art.
Way more, certainly to the awards.
Yeah. And it's just, it's like, ideology
Right.
trumps art. Ideology trumps individual effort. Ideology trumps good. Ideology trumps entertaining. Well, you couldn't say shit if you had a mouthful. All right. And every bestseller, every play that was turned into a movie, if there was anything sexual about it or anything, that's all going to be drained out of the movie. It's going to be weaned out of the movie. It's just the way it is.
Quentin Tarantino recently sat down with Bill Maher for a lively interview, and he didn't mince words. The famous director openly criticized modern Hollywood, calling out what he sees as empty political gestures and double standards. Maher joined in with his usual sharp remarks, making for a bold and entertaining exchange. If you enjoy honest, unfiltered conversations about the state of the entertainment world, be sure to subscribe. There's plenty more where this came.
Before we run out of time, I have to say to you, besides the great entertainment, I have always really appreciated the way you pushed back when anyone tried to stifle you, shut you up, shame you, bully you. They tried it with the last one, with Once Upon a Time in the Hollywood, some bullshit about Margot Robbie doesn't have enough lines. And you do what I wish other people would do. Instead of apologizing like a little pussy, you say, I don't agree with your assessment.
Bill Maher has never hidden his frustration with Hollywood's growing focus on political trends over storytelling, and I've talked about it often on this channel. These days, it can feel like meaningful stories are being replaced by slogans and surface-level messages. But even in that environment, there are still filmmakers who stand out, and Quentin Tarantino is one of them. Even Maher, who's tough on the industry, shows respect for Tarantino. Why? Because Tarantino sticks to his roots. He doesn't cater to trends or water down his vision. He still believes in telling bold, thought-provoking stories that challenge the audience instead of simply pleasing them. In a time when many creators play it safe, Tarantino dares to push boundaries, and that's what makes his work stand out. It's rare, it's fearless, and honestly, it's a breath of fresh air.
There has become a thing that's gone on, it seems like in this, especially this last year, where, what's the word I'm looking at? Ideology is more important than art.
Way more, certainly to the awards.
Yeah. And it's just, it's like, ideology trumps art. Ideology trumps individual effort. Ideology trumps good. Ideology trumps entertaining.
There's two kinds of movies, virtue signalers and superhero movies.
In the past year, it's become more obvious than ever. In Hollywood, ideology now often comes before art, especially when it comes to award shows. It feels like personal politics are more important than creativity, talent, or even entertainment value. It's like there are only two types of movies left, those built around a message and superhero blockbusters. This is exactly why Bill Maher respects Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino is one of the rare filmmakers on the left who's willing to speak up when things go too far, even if it means criticizing his own side. He doesn't shy away from hard truths, and Maher sees that as something Hollywood desperately needs more of. Over time, the industry has moved away from storytelling and imagination, leaning instead into messaging and surface-level activism. A clear example, the recent Snow White reboot. The film failed with both critics and audiences, not because people were against a new take, but because it felt more focused on making a political statement than telling a good story. One controversial choice was replacing the traditional casting of the Seven Dwarves with CGI characters. The reason? Sensitivity concerns. But in doing so, the filmmakers sidelined real actors who've proudly played those roles in the past. That's not progress. It's patronizing. And it's the kind of decision that Tarantino and Maher are not afraid to question out loud.
Are you bullish on the future of movies? Because
well, look, you have to always look at.
Are we going to get back to that place?
Look, this happens. This comes in waves. This absolutely comes in waves. All right, so it's like, okay, just looking at the 40s. All right, that was during the wartime, but that's also the time that you had film noir, where you actually, even though with the Hays Code, you had these dark, dark stories that were being told. But then after the war was won, then you had the 50s, which was the first of the completely homogenized decades, where you couldn't say shit if you had a mouthful, all right? And every bestseller, every play that was turned into a movie, if there was anything sexual about it or anything, that's all going to be drained out of the movie. It's going to be weaned out of the movie. It's just the way it is. And then, to me, it's one of the worst decades in Hollywood is the 50s. And the 60s, pretty much from like 1960 to 1966, was the 50s part 2.
Let's pause for a moment because Tarantino made a really interesting point. He talked about the Hays Code, those strict guidelines from the 1930s that Hollywood used to censor films before they were released. The rules mainly targeted anything considered too suggestive or morally questionable. At the time, many saw it as a major threat to free speech and artistic freedom. It forced filmmakers to water down their stories just to stay within acceptable boundaries. Now, here's where it gets thought-provoking. Tarantino believes we're seeing a new kind of censorship today, not from the government, but from social pressure online. He pointed out that creative voices are being silenced not by official rules, but by the fear of backlash from groups that demand ideological purity. Directors, writers, and studios often feel pressured to avoid any idea that might spark controversy, even if it means holding back creatively. Instead of being judged by their originality or storytelling, movies are now often measured by how closely they follow certain social expectations. Tarantino sees this as a real problem, saying it mirrors the old days of censorship, just in a new form. And in his view, it's just as harmful to creative freedom as the Hays Code ever was.
Right.
But then what we think of as the 60s starts in about 67, and that's when New Hollywood
Bonnie
comes
and
out.
Clyde.
Yeah. And that's an absolute positive response to the homogenized 50s.
So it's going to come back again.
Okay, and then it goes into the 70s, but then went into the 80s.
All right.
And that's why you came up with Politically Incorrect, because that was the first, this is basically the 80s part 2, what we're living through right now.
Well, I'll just take one more go at it. There's going to be a new golden age. Please be there and part of it.
Now here's something that might surprise you. Tarantino actually thinks Hollywood is starting to move away from woke culture. And if that's true, then honestly, it's about time. For years, the industry has felt more focused on sending messages than telling great stories. Instead of being inspiring or entertaining, many films have started to feel more like lectures, lacking excitement or emotional depth. It's as if creativity took a back seat to playing it safe, sticking to checklists and avoiding anything that might stir up debate. But if Tarantino is right, and we're beginning to see a shift, then this could be the start of something great. A return to what made movies magical in the first place. Unforgettable characters, strong stories, and real emotional impact. Imagine a Hollywood that challenges us, entertains us, and sparks real conversation without preaching. That's the kind of storytelling many of us grew up loving. And if this cultural reset is really happening, then maybe the future of film is finally starting to look bright again. But during his interview with Joe Rogan, Tarantino also shared a more troubling insight. Take a look.
And then there's like, okay, this guy or this woman is going to write a think piece in the New Yorker about my movie. Or in the Los Angeles Times or in the New York Times, and they're going to write some think piece about it, or on this website or that website. And they're going to go against it and talk about, oh, this is a retrograde vision, or that this is a regressive vision, or Quentin has become right-wing, and this movie has a right-wing bent because of the way they, Quentin is identifying with Rick Dalton as a fucking hippies. That's how it's. Is
going. That really a take that someone had that you've become right wing because of a character in a film?
Even like a critic who liked it, A.O. Scott, goes, well, this whole vision seems more on the right than you would imagine.
It might sound surprising, but this actually happens more than you'd expect, especially in recent years. Many viewers, particularly on the political left, tend to view films through a very narrow political lens. If a movie hints at conservative values or themes that don't fit a certain viewpoint, it often sparks outrage. Suddenly, the film isn't just a story. It's seen as a threat. You'll see people going after the cast, the writers, even the entire production team, simply because the message doesn't match their beliefs. But here's what often gets lost. Movies aren't supposed to exist inside one ideological box. Cinema is about reflecting real life, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Films are meant to explore different ideas, not just repeat what we already believe. Not every movie is going to agree with your politics, and that's okay. In fact, that's what makes art meaningful. It pushes us to think, feel, and sometimes even be uncomfortable. Judging a film solely by how well it matches your worldview misses the entire point of storytelling.